Hello, MCU fans. Today is going to be my breakdown and review of X-Men 97, Episode 10, the finale to a fantastic season. There are so many theories I want to go over with you. There will be spoilers, but as long as you're okay with that, then let's dive right in and see what we can find out. Don't forget, we do have a May contest running all month long. Be a subscriber, leave a comment. You could win a book or a steelbook. Best of luck. And we have the membership option in case you want to help me with my goal of doing this full-time one day. But honestly, no matter how you support the channel, it's all greatly appreciated. Leaving comments, liking videos, and subscribing, those things go a long way too. So thank you so much. So we start with Magneto narrating the previously on, which makes sense. He's a major part of this episode. And then for the scenes, we start with Apocalypse chasing down Cable, which we've seen multiple times this season. And of course, that's from Beyond Good and Evil, parts 1 of 4. But now we know why we keep seeing it. Because in the post-credit scene, Apocalypse showed up. Yes, he's going to be a major villain for Season 2. Cannot wait. And we also finally understand why they keep showing us these scenes. Because Phoenix finally arrives. And granted, I do think they're showing us these scenes also because if you look on the right, we do see the blue area of the moon, right? And there's going to be a major battle in this episode in the same location. But honestly, we're seeing this because Phoenix finally shows up. And I'll talk about how I felt about that when I get to that part of the breakdown. But I will say they have been teasing it all season long. So one of the new scenes is Professor X and Magneto fighting alongside back-to-back. Magneto's got a green tie on. I'll mention that a couple times. And they are fighting off these goons here. This is from the original series, Season 1, Episode 3, Enter Magneto. And in fact, here is a clip from that episode. Notice Magneto rocking that green tie. And Professor X says that they are revealing for the first time to each other, to anyone, our long-hidden mutant powers. And that's important because that's going to come up in a flashback in this episode. Then we get this scene where Professor X is trying to get into Emma Frost's mind and she shuts him out, right? I think they're showing it because obviously Xavier is going to try to get into Magneto's mind in this episode. But also, for what it's worth, this is from the Dark Phoenix saga, and it's one more reminder, Phoenix will be showing up. They have been teasing it all season long. Anyway, we get Sunspot running into the fence, which we've seen multiple times, but I think that's because he has a big-time power-up that is totally epic in this episode. And then finally, we get the scenes of Asteroid M, which of course came from the Sanctuary parts 1 and 2, and that's appearing because it's a major part of the episode and is finally destroyed once and for all. So, speaking of the episode, we start with Xavier and Magneto in a mental flashback. Back to the 60s, they're hanging out in a bar together. Magneto's got that green tie, right? And Professor X is revealing his mutant ability to Magneto. He says, telepathy, I'm a mind reader. I can bend people's minds to my will. To which Magneto says, metal, it bends to my will. Which is really cool. I'd never really thought of metal bending to his will, but I love that. I love that. Then he says, in my experience, minds are far harder to bend than metal, which is so ironic because Professor X, as we speak, is trying to bend Magneto's mind to his will. In fact, speaking of, Magneto finally catches on, and Xavier realizes the jig is up and says, okay, welcome to your mind, Magnus. And then we get to revisit a debate from last episode, right? I was so much waiting for this. So remember, last episode, it was Magneto's right and Professor X is an idiot. That was all we really saw. Well, let's look at this discussion here, because Magneto says, do you yearn for Bastion cyborgs to resume their pogrom against our species? And of course, Magneto's right. If Professor X reverses what Magneto did to the Earth, then Bastion will have control of the Prime Sentinels again. But this is what I really wanted to hear the answer to. Xavier counters with, and what happens to the mutants in a blacked out world? Notice he doesn't even mention the humans because he knows Magneto could care less about them. But what about the mutants, Magneto? And Magneto says, as coldly as possible, evolution thrives in darkness. Well, that's easy for him to say. He's heading up to Asteroid M, where it's nice and safe. He's got water and power and electricity, everything. And they're down on Earth in the dark with no magnetic field, exposure to cosmic rays, etc., etc. They're all going to die. So I think this just really shows the issues with Magneto's approach as well. I mean, keep in mind, remember, we learned last episode, he destroyed the Earth's magnetic field. It's literally dying. In fact, they said, when the sun sets tonight, it sets on the future. And they even said, in under an hour, civilization, as we know it, ends. Yet, Magneto still looked back at Xavier and said, "We have gotten here by walking this man's path," as though everything's his fault, but I got the solution. Well, it's true. It's true. Professor Xavier is an eternal optimist. He has on rose-colored glasses, and his solutions aren't working. But you know what? Magneto is an eternal pessimist. He's willing to just burn everything down to prove he's right. His solution doesn't work either. Just ask the mutants who would have been stranded on the Earth with no magnetic field and probably would have been dead within a couple days. So the answer to these problems is somewhere in between them. This gap between them, that's where it lies. The answer is never on the extremes. The hard answer, the one that takes work and effort, is somewhere in the middle. So I'm really glad they brought this debate back, and it's just interesting to consider when we look at issues in real life. All right, so this time now, we know that Professor X has plans to take over Magneto's mind and to force him to restore the magnetic field on Earth. But Magneto warns him such psychic penetration risks leaving both our minds shattered. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's Onslaught. I mean, that is totally Onslaught. I'm so glad that he didn't appear in this particular episode, though, because we had more than enough going on. But I'm going to bet that we will see Onslaught next season. So Apocalypse, they're queuing up Onslaught. And another reason I think we might see him is there's a scene later in the episode on this car dashboard where notice it says 1996.06. Well, June of 1996, that's the first appearance of Onslaught. So yeah, we're getting Onslaught, maybe season 2, maybe season 3, who knows? But he's coming eventually. All right, so time to make things right, because Xavier is going to take over Magneto's mind and make him fix the magnetic field. And wait, hold on, did I miss something? How did the Magneto helmet get off of Xavier's head? Remember, even in the previously on, they showed us it was firmly on his head and Magneto was holding it there. Now, granted, I probably know the answer. I wish they would have shown it, but I know the answer, right? While Magneto was, well, doing this to Wolverine, he probably lost focus on the helmet on Xavier's head and it fell off. I just wish they would have shown it. It would have, helped tie this all together. But here's a real point I want to make. I think Cyclops owes Wolverine a big apology. Because remember, last episode, just moments ago in last episode, he zapped Professor X while Professor X had Magneto under his control. Of course, Magneto then demolishes Wolverine, but then what happens 2 seconds later? Xavier has Magneto yet again. Yeah, just kind of process that. There was 0 point to what Cyclops did. He is responsible for Magneto being able to pull out that adamantium. Man, I think he owes Logan a big-time apology. We'll see how that works out when they see each other again. But anyway, time to make the Earth all right again. So Xavier takes over Magneto's mind, sends out his magnetic waves, and fixes the Earth. Yay, right? Well, no, this is the problem. This is what Magneto was warning about, because now Bastion has control of the Prime Sentinels again. Notice he's even holding that neuralizer in his hand to mock them and say, like, you thought you were going to put this on my head? No. I'm in control. He says, see, me. The future's tied. So yeah, he is ready to take over the Earth. So we do indeed need a miracle. But this is why I'm just saying it made more sense to restore the magnetic field and hope that somehow, some way, something on Earth would fix this. So we're going to see that some way in just a second, but not before we get some epic cameos. So we see Iron Man and Captain America there with President Kelly. That's awesome. And then maybe, is this a cameo? I don't know. I'm going to leave this on the table right here. I'm not going to say for sure, but I just think it's a bad idea. That dude is that close to President Kelly. We might have a problem here. We might have a problem, Houston. Anyway, more about Iron Man, though. Let's talk about Iron Man and his armor. This is really interesting. So notice his armor is the exact same armor that we saw in the Iron Man series, and particularly, I believe, Iron Man Season 1. So this raises that question again of what is canon to this universe. We know Spider-Man and X-Men, they're both canon in the same universe. But a lot of people put Iron Man, Fantastic Four, and Hulk in a separate universe. But boy, is this an interesting visual clue right here. Because when Iron Man shows up in Spider-Man series for the crossover, he's got a different set of armor on. Interesting, right? We're going to talk more about this, but I really want your comments on which series you think are in a connected universe. But okay, so then the Prime Sentinels are obviously activated. And we'll see in a minute how they get deactivated, but I'll just go ahead and move to that point here to finish out the cameos. So we see Iron Man and Captain America going, wow, that was easy. Then we see Silver Samurai. I'm sure he's going to be a villain next season. Can't wait. We see Daredevil. Love Daredevil. So glad to have him back. That's the same Daredevil from Spider-Man the Animated Series. And we even get a Netflix Easter egg here because Josie's Bar. Remember, they always hang out in Josie's Bar. Then we get Cloak and Dagger. Love Cloak and Dagger. Really want to see them again. I don't think it probably makes sense for them to show up in the X-Men series, but if Spider-Man gets a revival, please, Marvel, please, then Cloak and Dagger and Daredevil should all appear in that. We get Doctor Strange using both his mystic powers and his surgical powers to help people by candlelight. We get T'Chaka and the Dora Milaje. Okay, so this is interesting. We wouldn't necessarily know it's T'Chaka from this scene because he's got the mask on, right? And I love this really cool shot of him jumping down. But later, when he's talking to President Kelly, that is definitely T'Chaka. So that's kind of a problem when we're talking about which of these series are all connected, because in the Fantastic Four series, King T'Chaka was killed in the episode Prey of the Black Panther. So if he was killed, he can't show up in the X-Men series, right? And in fact, while we're talking about President Kelly there, President Kelly was the president in X-Men 97, but Bill Clinton was the president in some of those other animated series. So, okay, what is going on, right? Why have King T'Chaka show up if he was already dead? I don't know. Anyway, hold off on the comments. I have one more thing to show you, and then I really want to know your thoughts on what's connected and what's not. So now we go to Omega Red, Darkstar, and Crimson Dynamo. Love seeing them all together. In fact, here's Omega Red. They're all definitely going to show up in next season or somewhere down the road. Can't wait for that. And here they are noticing when the Prime Sentinels get shut off, which we'll get to in a second. Then we also get Northstar, Psylocke, Cypher, Puck, and Aurora. Very cool. And we get some Morph cameos. Morph turns into Sauron. It's a blink and you miss cameo, but sure enough, we get Sauron. And more importantly, we get Morph as Mr. Fantastic. Why is this so important? Because that's the same character design from the Fantastic Four series. So they're matching that same design, and in fact, it is not the character design from when the Fantastic Four show up in Spider-Man series in the Secret Wars. So yeah, we've now got two characters showing the same character design as their original series, but then we've got issues like President Kelly, T'Chaka, etc. So let me know your thoughts. What's connected, what's not? I'll tell you my opinion. I think it's Spider-Man and X-Men for now, and we have to put the other three in a different universe. They're variants showing up in Spider-Man and X-Men, but I have to make them separate because there's too many continuity issues. I may do a video on this in the future because I do think it's a very interesting topic. All right, but my absolute favorite cameo was Peter, MJ, and Flash. Now notice we're seeing them through a broken window, which looks like a spider web. That's kind of fun, the broken glass. But now we finally know what happened to MJ, because at the end of Spider-Man series, season 5, episode 13, we have a giant unresolved cliffhanger. We got to go off and find the real Mary Jane, and we never find out what happens. I mean, obviously we know she was rescued, but we never get to see it. So now officially we do know from this cameo that she was indeed rescued, but I still want a revival of his series because I want them to show us how it happened. But here's something interesting. So I've done videos on Spider-Man and on X-Men's timelines. You can go check those two out if you want to know more. But now we can put in all of these crossovers, in particular focusing on this crossover, right? The ones from X-Men 97, which take place in November of 97. Well, notice Spider-Man series ends in December of 1996. So there is a gap of 11 months there, during which time, obviously, MJ gets rescued. So yeah, please, Marvel, bring this series back, close off the cliffhanger, and then give us lots of new episodes. We would love it. We'd love it. Okay, so now Bastion again, who has his powers back, is taunting Cable. How many times did you fail to stop me? And then, of course, he can't answer unless Mr. Sinister allows him to. And finally, he says 200. 200 times. So that's interesting because Bo DeMaio had tweeted out that homework for this final episode was the Star Trek Next Generation episode Cause and Effect. And that's basically a giant time loop that they go through many, many times, maybe 200 or more. And so I'm wondering if this statement here is why he recommended this episode. I guess it's also possible that season 2 is going to be part of another giant time loop. Seems a little much, so I kind of guess not. But I do think that the writers, the animators, they really do like Star Trek, because we're going to see another very cool quote from an old Star Trek movie coming up later. But anyway, kind of cool. Then to save the day, who shows up but Phoenix? I am Phoenix, she says. And this is definitely the white Phoenix from the comics. Very, very cool to see her appear. But as I kind of alluded to at the beginning, I really hope this doesn't happen anymore. I mean, having Phoenix show up as kind of like a get out of jail free card. Granted, they were predicting, or they were giving us hints it was going to happen for quite some time, so we knew it was going to happen. But still, I just hope it doesn't happen real often, right? But this was pretty cool. I mean, she animates, she actually fixes the neuralizer that the Bastion ends up destroying, puts it on his head, which cuts off his access to all of the Prime Sentinels. And then, boy, does she take care of Mr. Sinister, right? She says, all this mutant DNA you stole to stay duct taped together. And of course, she's referring to Descent from the original series, season 5, when we learn that Mr. Sinister is indeed very old and has only been kept young by all this mutant DNA. Well, she rips it out of him, rips it right out of him, and turns him very, very old. And then I love that Morph gets a little revenge because Mr. Sinister says, show me my face. And Morph says, looks the same to me. Of course, after everything that Mr. Sinister did to poor Morph, I'm kind of glad Morph got the last word here. So then Sinister runs off. I wonder if we'll ever see him again. I kind of think so, because maybe he's going to figure out how to fix this. But for now, he is gone. But is this truly the last time we'll see Phoenix? I hope so. I mean, I think this was perfect. Notice how Jean says the Phoenix Force is gone now. I hope. But I could feel it deep inside, pulling me back to protect my son. Well, that is beautiful. If Phoenix was going to return, this is a good way to make it happen. But again, yeah, I hope that's it. No more Phoenix. No more Phoenix. But then Bastion makes his last stand. So he rips Cable's arm off. Yikes. And beats him with his own arm. My goodness. And notice on his head, the neuralizer is still in place. So even though it's in place, he is still able to power up into this new form. So at first I thought, well, how did he do that? Then I remembered. Oh, by the way, this is just like in the comics. Notice, I love that. Very, very close adaptation to how he looked in the comics. Very cool. But then I remembered why he was able to do this. Storm. Oops. Seems like a lot of people made mistakes in the previous episode. Because remember, it was Storm that says, no, I don't want it to totally neutralize his powers. Neutralize his control over the Prime Sentinels? Yes. But had Storm not insisted on this, Bastion would have been done. Man, so many mistakes when you look back at the last episode that they made. But anyway, he does still have his powers, so now he's going to head off to get a new meteor to cause extinction on Earth. I will tear that rock from the heavens and hurl it to the Earth. And then they say this interesting phrase, Bastion is the future incarnate. Now, I understand conceptually what that means because, he knows the future. He knows what's going to happen. Well, he thinks he does at least. But they're going to use this same phrase again, and I really want your opinion on why. I'm just a little confused by it. But anyway, he is, for now, the future incarnate. He thinks he knows what's going to happen. So he heads into the core, and boy, is this important. This is one of my big theories. But he heads into the core of the meteor, and he's going to destroy it so that it falls to the Earth, right? But before he gets the chance to do so, oh, I love this so much. Rogue comes flying in. His name was Gambit. Remember it. Look at that punch. Just smashes his face in. Oh, so satisfying for Rogue. My. And then she knocks him out of the asteroid and does the sonic clap. Yeah, baby. Take him down, just like She-Hulk did. So cool. And then he ends up falling and crashing onto the blue area of the moon. Remember, I mentioned that in the Phoenix episode, they had that at the beginning. And notice you can see the statue over on the left. It looks just like the statues from the comics. So very, very cool. Love that. Then Sunspot gets his moment in the spotlight. Says the name Sunspot. It's definitely got more flair. So that is really cool. Awesome to see him totally power up. And then we get to see Cyclops and Bastion going at it. That's pretty cool. Beam versus Beam. And even Jubilee gets a little one-liner in there. Says, game over, Sleazoid, and punches him out there. And, of course, she's able to say that phrase because she learned more about her powers in that episode 4 Motendo. So even for those that kind of thought, that episode was a throwaway episode, we didn't need it. No, it helped with Jubilee's character growth. So very cool. But now Bastion, he ain't looking so good. He ain't looking so good, but still, he thinks things are still under his control. He says, "Behold my family," because in flies a sentinel, and epically, it's Beast commanding it, and drops a little Trojan horse joke. Well, the Greeks did love horses and irony. So then Beast puts his foot down, if you will, and tries to crush Bastion. And then this is what I don't understand. Nightcrawler says, "Truly, he is the future incarnate." They basically got him defeated at this point. I don't understand that. So let me know if you have any thoughts on that. It doesn't really matter. It's a throwaway line, I know, but I'm just curious. What was the intent behind that line? Nonetheless, I love that Cyclops decides, no, we're going to show him mercy. We're going to do what we've been telling humanity to do for years. And he tries to get Bastion to join. But unfortunately, the mercy he's showing Bastion is not being returned, because if we look down at what's happening on Earth, President Kelly is looking at the Magneto Protocol, which we discussed that last month, last week, which is something from the comics. Now, in the comics, it seemed like it was something that would shut down Magneto's powers. It seems like, at least in these episodes, it's something that can blast Asteroid M out of the sky. But so this is kind of fun. There's some Easter eggs on the file of Magneto. First of all, down here, you get Eric Lyncher, but you also get David Hemblin. That's really cool. He's the actor that played Magneto in the original series. He's passed away now. And then we get Ian M. and Michael F. have been both redacted. That's pretty obvious, right? Ian McKellen, Michael Fassbender. And then under children, we get Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and then a redacted with a P, which is clearly Polaris. I don't know why they would have redacted that, to be honest. Maybe, I don't know. I'm curious of your thoughts on why. But nonetheless, that's pretty cool, little Easter egg, because we're going to see all three of them very soon. But yeah, mercy is not returned because, look, they've sent the missiles against Asteroid M. But oh my goodness, what happens with these missiles is insanity. Okay, so they head in towards the core, right? And these are nukes. So I'm guessing a combination of whatever that core is and the nukes. Watch what happens. Massive explosion, right? Who knows what's happening here? It's all sucking everything in and creating some massive disturbance. Then this looks interesting, right? And then, whoa, that's pretty cool. But then here's the money shot. A black hole. Holy mackerel. A black hole, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I had done a video. If you haven't seen it, go check it out, on all the different ways black holes have shown up in the MCU. It's a very interesting video. But typically, black holes will allow you to go even between universes, let alone time traveling. We're talking between universes. So we're definitely going to come back to this point because this adds a little new meaning to these tweets from Beau DeMaio. You might remember I talked about these in a previous breakdown, how Beau DeMaio was asked, hey, you mentioned fixed points in time. Does that mean it's the same rules as Doctor Strange? And that's when he said, no, we're not connected to the same tree. Remember, he said, we're in a neighboring tree and not a branch of the multiverse tree. But here's the key. He says a few leaves from one tree can mingle with another at some point. Is he hinting at the fact that that black hole that was created on Asteroid M may result in some of the X-Men showing up in the MCU? We will most definitely be talking about this at the end of the episode, but something is going on here. Craziness. So yeah, is this a passage over to the MCU tree? We'll find out soon. All right, so the reason I say it's got to be a black hole, look, everything's getting sucked into it. The Sentinel gets sucked into it. Bastion realizes, I'm going to get sucked into this. In fact, he'd rather do that than joining with humanity and the mutants. And so he flies into it. So at first I thought, well, he's probably dead. I don't know. He may have shown up somewhere else. We may get him again. Or he may have been completely destroyed. But yeah, we have definitely got an active black hole happening inside this asteroid. Okay, so bad news for the Magneto Protocol, right? Because it didn't work. So they say, we regret to inform you that the missile strike to intercept the asteroid has failed. And there's a part of me that wanted to go, you know what, guys? Why didn't you listen to this guy? If you could have looked over in the MCU, Nick Fury would have told you, firing missiles instead of letting the heroes do their job is a bad idea. I recognize the council has made a decision, but given that it's a stupid decision, I have elected to ignore it. Well, unfortunately, Nick Fury wasn't in charge and President Kelly was. So they're going to regret that because they just created a black hole in space. And I do believe we are edging closer and closer to this happening. I mean, when the X-Men understand that all the troubles they're going to go through next season are due to them firing those nukes, instead of letting the X-Men try to take care of the situation, we're going to get Avengers versus X-Men. I mean, look at all this being set up for season 2 and season 3. So much good stuff. Anyway, so I believe they all thought they were going to die. I mean, Cyclops was saying, to everybody, let me die. And they all said, no, we're going to do this together. So before they, do their final stand, they communicate back to Nathan, which is just so beautiful. Nathan says what he's probably needed to say to them. Those legends of you two, they really don't do my folks justice. So he's basically saying, hey, now that I've met you, you're even more. You mean even more to me. And then they, on the other hand, Cyclops says, Nathan, I always swore I would never repeat my father's mistake. Of course, he's referring to Corsair, who basically left without saying goodbye. So Cyclops has Jean hold his eyes back so that he can see him with his own eyes. And he says, I love you, son. Oh, wow. That's something else. Having a son myself, that really got me. That's intense. So then also, and this was a little earlier in the episode, but I'm putting these two scenes together because I think it's important to see this back to back. Also, Cyclops says, don't you dare break her heart to Wolverine. You really need to say you're sorry, dude. But anyway, so he's saying that regarding don't you break Jean's heart, which is a pretty big deal because he's always been annoyed that Logan likes Jean. But here he is admitting, look, if that's going to pull you through, I'll say it. And interestingly, then later, it's Morph who says to Wolverine, she can't say it, but I can. I love you, Logan. Stay with me. So I think it's been clear, but this really makes it clear. Morph loves Logan. That's crystal clear. But Morph knows that Logan loves Jean. So I don't know what the future holds for those two, but it just got more interesting. Let's say that. But anyway, so the thing, though, that's been going on in the background all this time is Professor X now trying to pull Magneto out of the coma that he basically put Magneto in. So he said, my psychic attack shattered Magnus's psyche, and in order to save the world, we must not lose him. So while all this craziness is going on, black hole in space, or black hole, above the Earth, Professor X is working on Magneto. And he explains to him this dark pain you've carried inside all these years. It's your family. It's family. These are the people that care about you. So he's trying to draw him back into realizing the good that Magneto can do. Notice we get Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver over on the left, and there's Polaris, or P redacted, as the case may be. And of course, Rogue, who means a great deal to him, in the center. So working with him, fighting hard to bring Magneto back. Finally, Magneto says, your name is Professor Charles Xavier. And this is what I think was a big-time Star Trek reference to Star Trek 3, when Captain Kirk brings back Spock, and Spock says, Jim, your name is Jim. So very cool. I do think that there's a lot of respect between the X-Men writers and Star Trek. But anyway, Magneto is now back. Thank goodness, because we got a black hole to be taken care of. I don't think they know it's a black hole at this point, although they have to wonder, since everybody was getting sucked into that. But he says Magneto lives, and now he puts this protective thing around Asteroid M and makes sure to save the city. And you got to save the city, right? Because we got all these Easter eggs. We got DaCosta, we got VistaCorp, we got Stark Enterprises, and we got WHIH. We're going to lose the Easter eggs if it destroys the Earth, right? But anyway, he pushes it up in space, and boom. It blows up and implodes. And again, here's the core of it. That looks to me almost like a white hole, to be honest. So we saw a black hole earlier. So the white hole may have actually shut down the black hole because they're supposed to be opposites of each other, as I understand. And see there, now that looks a little bit like a black hole horizon there. I don't know. But either way, it sucks it all away through time and space, and we get no signal down on Earth. And then this is interesting. Keep this in mind because I'm going to mention this a little bit later. Notice Sunspot and Jubilee are hanging out with Forge and Val, boo hiss Val. But anyway, they're all hanging out together. But clearly everybody else is gone. So we actually jump 6 months into the future. That's craziness, right? 6 months after E-Day, and the rumors still swirl about the fate of the X-Men. So then we can now finish off our Season 1 timeline because we now know that Episode 10 jumps from November of 1997 to May of 1998, 6 months later. So yes, indeed, next season will be X-Men 98, I'll bet you. I don't know, do they want to change the branding? It'll be interesting to see how they handle that. But we definitely have moved into 98 with that 6 month jump. So can't wait to see what happens there. Bring it on, season 2. But anyway, in the meantime, we have a little bit more to discuss here. So first of all, a bad apple turns up again. On the news, we learn that Graydon Creed has edged ahead in the polls today. Graydon is running for president. Of course, that's that dude, right? The Friends of Humanity guy. Now, it is interesting to note, Kelly ran for president in 92 and again in 96. So unless things are different in the X-Men world, Kelly can't run again. So I don't know who Graydon Creed is running against, but it ain't Kelly. Kelly's done. So yeah, good old Creed. Remember? He's the dude. I've talked about this family tree a couple times. He's the dude who's the son of Sabretooth and Mystique. So I wonder how Sabretooth feels with his son running for president. Interesting. So yeah, that's going to be a storyline for next season, definitely. Imagine if a Friends of Humanity person is running the country. Yikes. All right, so now we look at this board that Forge has put together where he's trying to figure out where has everyone gone. And while this one's a little easier to read, a little more clear, I am going to go to this board, which was blurry in the episode too, but it lets you at least see everybody's faces. So let's talk about the different categories Forge has put people in. So first of all, he has the missing/presumed dead category with Cyclops, Jean Grey, Storm, Beast, Magneto, Nightcrawler, Xavier, Morph, Rogue, Archangel, that one's interesting, and Wolverine. Then he has an AWOL category, Jubilee, Sunspot, Cable. That one's interesting to me because remember, Jubilee and Sunspot were with Forge at the end of the main part of the episode before the 6-month jump. So what happened to them? Where did they go? And why does Forge not know where they are? Very interesting. Then we have Off-World, and they list Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. Fascinating. We have Active, Colossus, Dust, Magic, Iceman, Havoc, Exodus, Shadowcat, and Emma Frost. So, wow, very cool. 24 different X-Men there. So we'll talk more about this when we find out where at least some of them are, and then we'll discuss where some of the others may have gone. All right, so Bishop finally returns. Dude, now you show up after all that? So he says, moving on mighty fast there to Forge. And Forge says, I looked for months, which again, that discusses the 6-month time jump, right? He looked for months. And he says, I couldn't find a trace of them or the asteroid. Okay, well, says Bishop, it's less a question about where and more when. I mean, of all people to know that, it would be Bishop, right? But man, Bishop has a lot of explaining to do. How did you lose Nathan? Remember, he lost Nathan in the time stream. Where have you been? Why did you show up now? Man, lot to learn next season. But we do see where some of the team are, right? Some of them are in 3000 BC in Egypt. Rogue says, dang, asteroid exploded, and now we're here, which is interesting. As far as they know, it just exploded, and boom, there they are. So again, that black hole that was formed, I think that is what transported them to different timelines. I think they are still in the main X-Men 97 universe, but to different timelines. But we may see some other people might not still be in the X-Men universe. More on that in a second. But so anyway, we see that they are indeed in ancient Egypt with Apocalypse. Yikes, right? In fact, I think B says it perfectly. Oh dear. Oh dear. So you might remember, in the comics at least, Rama Tut, who is a version of Kang, is the one that ends up helping give Apocalypse his powers. So are we going to see a Rama Tut appearance, a la a Kang appearance, one of the Kang Council? I don't know, but definitely Apocalypse doesn't have his full powers yet, it seems. So that's interesting. And then we see that some of the team has been shot into the future, 3960 AD to be precise. And I think that is an interesting year. So 3960, right? Well, remember, Beyond Good and Evil, parts 1 through 4, they take place, as you can see on the far left, in 3999. That's awfully suspicious, right? They're 39 years before those episodes take place. And of course, in those episodes, both Apocalypse and Cable appear. Very, very interesting, right? So who else do they meet when they go to the future? Well, they meet a lady who says, you can call me Mother Ascani, leader of Clan Ascani. And I do believe that that is Rachel Summers, because in the comics, there is an alternate future. I do not believe that they are in the future of X-Men 97, the main X-Men 97 timeline. They're in an alternate future, and they meet Rachel Summers. But they also meet Nathan. Nathan, who is pretty young, but if you added 39 years to his age, in other words, 3999, well, he might be the same age as Beyond Good and Evil's episodes. Oh my word. Are they in the alternate timeline that ends up being Beyond Good and Evil? Crazy, 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 right? Also, I do think this is going to adapt some of the comic Ascani's Son, which basically is the adventures of young Cable. So I think this might be some required reading to check out and see, what happened in the comics. Of course, they'll adapt it differently for the episodes, but still, pretty cool. Pretty cool. And then we jump to present day, where presumably some of the team is still there. And we see present day Genosha, and we see Apocalypse. So much pain, he says, my children. So much death. And he's holding the Queen of Hearts. So yes, all the theories that have been thrown out there about a Gambit coming back as a Horseman of Death is definitely going to be true. That's him from the comics there. And I cannot wait to see how insane it's going to be for Rogue to be fighting Gambit as a Horseman of Death. And we'll have to see who are the other three horsemen. Throw out your guesses for who you think might be used by Apocalypse for his other horsemen. Going to be insane, right? And we end with his big old smile. And I definitely think required viewing to get ready for next season are these Beyond Good and Evil parts 1 through 4, because that will show us where Apocalypse left off. And then notice I mentioned Rama Tut in the past, right? Well, guess who appeared in these episodes in the future? That would be Immortus. Immortus showed up. So we got Immortus and Rama Tut both potentially appearing next season. Craziness. We might have Kang to the left of us, Kang to the right of us. Kang's everywhere. All right, so last thing I want to do is just kind of lay out the chess pieces. Where is everybody, right? So we have Egypt, 3000 BC, Beast, Magneto, Nightcrawler, Xavier, and Rogue. In the future, we have basically just Cyclops and Jean, and they're all listed as missing by, of course, Forge. Then I'm just calling them searching because he didn't give a status for himself, but Forge and Bishop are now searching for everybody else. We have the active team, which I think this may end up being a team next season. That'd be really cool. I would be totally down for this team. Then we have Off-World, whatever that means, right? Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. And then we have the AWOL folks, Jubilee, Sunspot, and Cable. And then here's the interesting group. We still have missing Storm, Morph, and Wolverine. Where did they end up? Well, remember, I said earlier how Bo DeMaio said maybe some leaves can connect between the trees. What if that black hole actually sent one or all of them to the MCU? Wouldn't that be insane? And then also, we have Archangel. Why is he listed as missing? I'm wondering if that's because Apocalypse killed him so that he can make Gambit be the new version of Death. Interesting. Anyway, so much to discuss, so many things ahead of us. I am just thoroughly excited for season 2. Please, Marvel, give it to us yesterday. We want it now. All right. Like I said, to be continued, right? Cannot wait for season 2. Let me know your thoughts on all the different theories that are out there from this video. I'd love your feedback, as always. I respond to everything. And then, of course, don't forget that May contest, right? Be a subscriber, leave a comment, win a book or a steel book. And then again, there's that membership option in case you're interested in that. Plus, I always love to mention the Discord server. So many things going on. We have X Monday rewatches. We have even more watch parties listed here. We have MMORPG, so much fun. We have Star Wars retrospectives. Those will continue on. We have a thumbnail contest because we all know my thumbnails ain't that great. So you can design a thumbnail for an upcoming Moon Girl video. And of course, we mostly talk about Star Wars, DC, and Marvel. But hey, we can make a thread on anything you want out in the other media forum. 1,300 members across the globe, conversations 24/7. We would love you to be part of it. Also, if you don't mind, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out more content, and we'll all continue to enjoy the ever-growing, the ever-changing Marvel Cinematic Universe.